Hi, my name is Claudio Ragazzi. I'm a Grammy and Emmy-winner music film composer and guitarist. I'm also teaching a number of classes on composition, production, and orchestration here at Berklee College of Music. I'm going to use a couple of very simple musical gestures or motifs to develop a full orchestral composition. So we'll actually see that you don't need to wait for great inspiration, and I will show you some practical ways to start your orchestral score. I'll be talking about motivic development, sync points, form, creative ways of using the click, metric, and time modulations, and of course, composition and orchestration. The scene I'm thinking of scoring would be an action chase scene. Let's start off with a simple piano motif. Great. Probably not the most inspiring thing, but we can start working with that. The next stage is choosing a tempo that is appropriate for the scene and creating some markers in Cubase. If you had a real action scene, you would need to hit specific sync points. Okay, now that I have my piano motif, I'm going to start simple. I'm going to choose time signature of 4/4. I'm going to be at 100 beats per minute. I got some markers in seconds and frames. I'm going to start with one at 2 seconds, 9 frames. The next one is going to be at 9:13, 16:18, 26:08, 33:13, 41:22, 56:08. And I'm going to end this cue at around 1 minute. As you can see, when you're working on an action scene, you usually have, even for a 1 minute piece, you get a lot of sync points. Great. Now I'm done creating my markers and can start working on form. One of the issues here is how little material I have for creating a true composition. So, when you're working on a scene for an actual cue, you will have a very small amount of time to complete your task. And for an action scene, this little piano melody definitely does not have enough increasing dramatic tension and excitement. So I'm going to have to do something special. Over the years, I've learned a couple of tools and tricks. Some of them are rhythmic techniques like using metric modulation and odd meters. I think coming from such a simple piano melody, these are going to work great. Okay, so the concept of metric or rhythmic modulation is basically what you do is you divide the quarter note, could be, for example, dividing the quarter note into triplets. One of those triplets now, once you establish that rhythm, becomes the new tempo. So everything moves up to a faster tempo. That is a really smooth way and great way to move from one tempo or one beat to a higher beat. Actually, the tempo changes are more based on metric or tempo modulations than any random tempo changes. I will also use time signature changes to meet my markers or movie sync points. Let's find some spots where I can move from quarter notes to triplets, double time, or even dotted quarter notes to find the tension and the excitement we need. I really want to explore metric modulation on this one. So with a tempo of 100 beats per minute going on 4/4 time signature, it gives me a lot of flexibility. That means that my triplet is going to be equal to 150 beats per minute. And then I'm going to move to a triplet smoothly to that, change from 3/4 to 6/8, and then here the 6/8, and then I'm going to go 5 8, truncating 1/8 note, and then I will go back to a quarter note, but this time on 133 beats per minute, which equals a dotted 8th note. Then I do a quick retardando to go back to my tempo primo, or my 100 beats per minute. Next, I'll work on a simple piano sketch using my markers and tempo changes. Now that I have my tempo changes and my tempo map, sync points, time signature changes, another sync point, more tempo changes, my retardando, and then I go back, I'm able to go back to my 100 beats per minute. I'll start working on a piano sketch. The piano sketch is gonna be a basic tool. Great. So that's my basic piano sketch, and that piano sketch actually features a lot of the techniques. From the actual piano motif, I ended up creating some ostinatos and a couple of simple motivic variations. Now that I have my markers and finished my piano sketch, I'm ready to bring it to my orchestral template. So as you can see, I got all my sounds, woodwinds, brass, percussion including loops, classical percussion, strings, and I also like to have a piano. So now that I have my template open, I'm going to import that into the piano sketch that I have. The first thing I'm going to work on before the orchestration is building a temp rhythm track. I'll be using some orchestral percussion as well as some well-known loop players too. So I'm going to open Contact and I'm going to look for Damage. I'll start working with that loop player. I'm not going to use the loop menus, but I'm going to use the sample loops. I'll choose the one I like. And basically, this is a better way for me to work since I can bounce the MIDI and that information into my sequencer. By doing that, I have a lot more flexibility. So I will bounce the MIDI into the sequencer. I can actually start manipulating the patterns, and I can start manipulating things like accentuations, rests, some of the sound. So this is a good way for me to work and not to fall into preconceived loops. I don't have to use exactly what they want. I can change the notes, I can change the sounds, I can actually create some rests, some different articulations, some different accentuations, and in that way I can make it sound a little more personal and not as prefabricated as it would sound if I was using a loop straight from the box. After working with my patterns and Damage, I'm actually ready to work the piano and percussion parts. Let's listen to the percussion now. The creative process is not always linear or logical. What can be true for one piece of music can be horribly wrong for the next one. As a matter of fact, you can even say that what works for bar 4 may not work for bar 5 in the same piece of music. It's always helpful to have a clear sense of form and to envision the full composition, to know when to start and how, when to repeat, when to create a variation or a completely different section altogether, when to bring back the main theme, and when and how to end the piece. The first thing I'm doing actually is replacing the piano opening with the harp, and then I'm using some of the lower strings actually here to emphasize the lower ostinatos. We have some of the strings ready. Let's support them by adding some woodwinds and brass. I will use the brass also as the loudest instrument in the orchestra to underline some of the dynamics and the most important parts. It's getting closer to sounding the way I want, so let's listen to the arrangement with harp, strings, Okay, please give me a chance for a final pass and to fine-tune this orchestration, and then we'll listen to the entire cue. Even though I've been working hard not to use the piano, I'm actually going to bring back the piano as a percussion instrument to help me with those ostinatos. I'm also adding some clusters and string effects at the very beginning to make that harp opening more interesting. So here's the final version. Enjoy it. So that is it. Have you ever worked on something similar and have you encountered some of the same challenges I did? Please make your comments. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in another episode of Virtual Orchestration.